Hello. Good morning, wonderful colleagues. Good morning, Kirsty. I'll start with my favourite friend, Kirsty, who reminds me what a difficult life I've led, and I need to look so much better than I do. See, Kirsty, I look at you and go, what have I done with my life?
Oh, stop it. Good morning, everybody.
Lovely to see you, Kirsty. Queen Emma's in, all looking glamorous in purple this week, Emma. Hello.
Hello.
You look magnificent. Megan's back. The ambassador of Norfolk Island has joined us once more. Queen Gay's in. We love you, Gay. Queen Mary's in. We love you, Mary. Ruth, the glamour that is Ruth. I've not seen Ruth in the corridors this week because I have been in Sydney. You are the best. Hope you're going. And Julie's in. That's great. How are you, Jules? Oh, I just get a high, yeah, fine, whatever. And Fiona Steele, as in the famous Brabazon Steele, Fiona Steele, is with us. She may not have camera on because there are children everywhere. Welcome to the Northern Territory. But Fee, we love you and we may see you shortly. So, colleagues, welcome to the CDU Sydney campus. It's modern, it's urban, it's exciting, it's fabulous. We are here. So, colleagues, we are through it. And by the way, Jamie, I think will be coming on. Are you going to come in or are you just going to be in an alternative location? So, colleagues, let's do this. I'm so grateful to every single one of you. I'm writing articles here only in this time and producing them and sending them out to the world, and I couldn't do it without you. So, colleagues, we have 29 minutes. Let's do some damage. See you on the other side. Come on, come on, come on, Ruth. Come on, Ruth. Okay. G'day, Paul. Good luck. Paul's doing a recording. Good on you, Paul. Good luck. last minute colleagues. Good. And colleagues, we are done. Wow, shake it off. Oh, Kirsty, your face again captured exactly where I was at. Let Paul get his gear organised. We'll just talk to Kirsty first. Go on you, Paul. So Kirsty, you and I tend to get very immersed into these sessions. How did you go this week, mate?
Yeah, really good. I'm going through some really intense feedback at the moment, but then from the feedback, I went down a Stuart Hall rabbit hole, which then led to something I didn't quite realize before, which is possibly why I got the feedback I did, was it's very much related to Marx's theory of consumption. And so I was just like, and relating that to communication, I was just like, what? And yeah, and then relating that back to my research. So yeah, it was very cool, like that production and encoding and consumption and decoding, and yeah, and that circular and the circuit of it.
Right. So I was wondering which bit of Hall, because there are many Stuart Halls. So it was the encoding and decoding 1978 Stuart Hall. Is that where you were?
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at Paul too. So mate, what are you needing? So I'm interested, because people go to Stuart Hall now and go to that article now. I'm always interested. I'm looking at Paul's face as I'm saying this. So Kirsty, what are you needing, and what were they recommending when they made that recommendation?
Yeah, it's more about how when he talks about those moments where there's that circulation of distribution, and how that reproduction of meaning within that, so it's not just about encoding and how the audience decodes it, because part of my research is very much on audience reception and then behavioral change, but more that how we encode, and then how it's decoded, and then how that's sent back, and then so through that Marxist lens. So I'm only just getting into it right now, so it's I'm
so interested I could explode, because obviously this is my life that you've just articulated in the last 30 seconds. Just two quick interventions. As someone who adores Stuart Hall, grew up on Stuart Hall, obviously Susan's in the house, so of course Stuart Hall, very important to knitting together international education. But can I say, so Kirsty, perhaps you would also maybe have a think about going even further back, Raymond Williams' Structures of Feeling, which might also do the work for you. But the critique I now have of that encoding and decoding work comes from Jean Baudrillard through the theorization of the simulacrum. So instead of having that encoding decoding model, which is a semiotic model, which is completely like a vacuum sealed thing, so there's no leakage or bleeding out of the semiotic model, Baudrillard created a 3-tier model that cascades, called a real, a representation, and a simulacra. And so we have our real experience that then is immediately represented and then is immediately re-represented in a simulacrum. So I'll give you an example. Say Jamie kills me now, which most people would say is justifiable homicide. So Jamie kills me now, and that's a real thing, and it happened. And then like a news crew from Sydney then report on like professor kills another professor in justifiable rage, right? So that is a representation of a real event.
Mm.
Then
Mm.
Jordan Peterson picks that up on Twitter and says, well, she was a feminist and she was in full-time work. So what do you expect a man to do married to such a woman? Okay. So that's a representation of a representation of a representation. And that simulacrum never actually touches the real. So the argument now is all of us are living our lives in the simulacrum
Mm.
and we never actually get to a real event.
Mm. And then you add that to gender and climate change communication.
Well, can you see how it works magnificently?
Yeah.
So Hall was magnificent for the time, but it was a closed system. Semiotic system was a closed system, and the social semiotic placed that in a bleeding, rupturing mess of a system where it's, and of course, by the way, that real representation simulacra then cascades. So the simulacrum in one system becomes the real in the next, and it goes up vertically.
Mm. Mm.
So I could have just destroyed your life, but I would have killed myself if I hadn't had that conversation with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. That's just
Look, I could have just been talking rubbish, but Kirsty, you're a legendary human, and thank you for mentioning Stuart Hall and encoding and decoding. It's changed my life. Kirsty's amazing. Paul, have I just destroyed Kirsty's life there? And how did your podcast go, mate?
Not at all. That was a really good. Yeah. That was a good conversation. My podcast was all right. It's so the university are looking at sustainability, and they're getting staff involved more in sustainable practices within education. And I've been brought in as the member of staff for music performing arts to work on that. And I've taken it of my view of it is sustainable research practices. So I've created a podcast questioning stuff to staff and students, just some questions to start the conversations. And I'm looking at the social and cultural sustainable practices of research. So I'm looking at how we can better be sustainable with our research and how to better create kind of the life cycle of research so that the inquiry to knowledge can be repeated and repeated furthermore without impact on the environment. So I'm opening up questions to staff and students on how we can better engage that through communities of research, communities of practice, and my particular lens of multimodality and how we can do that through a digital landscape. So
Now,
that's kind of what I put together.
Mate, that's unbelievable. And can I say, I've used the phrase, because you and I are sort of linked in this weird antipodal dance that we're doing. I've used the phrase sustainability of research a lot, and I haven't had sort of any content in that. So you've given me the content for that. That's absolutely amazing. Is that going to be available, or is that an internal?
It's stimulus has been created internally, but I think through what I'm going to do and working with others, it's going to be created into an article, I assume. Because actually, kind of what you just, there isn't a lot out there around. There's researching sustainably, but not looking particularly at culture and societal sustainability of research and how actually we can look outside of the university to create sustainable research that keeps going, projects that keep going past my lifetime and past. You know what I mean? So that's the angle I'm looking at, and there's nothing out there really around that. So
no, can I just say, everyone, hashtag no pressure. Has your brain just exploded with Kirsty and Paul today? It's just unbelievable. Thank you both. That's just stunning. And look, Ruth, no pressure, mate. No pressure. Where are we, darling?
So last week I was working on drafting like a skeleton for my thesis so that I would sort of always have something to refer back to in quiet times. So this week I thought I would tackle what I thought was going to be kind of easy-ish, but was more interesting than I thought it would be, and that was writing about the background to the project and how I sort of found my way to it.
Brilliant.
And it's actually proved to be quite useful because I've started making some connections, and yeah, it was a good time to be doing something like that, even though that wasn't the motivation when I started half an hour ago. It's just a good time, I think, to be kind of reflecting on why I'm here and why I'm doing it. So that's what I was thinking.
Ruth, I'm just obsessed about that. And of course, as you know, I send an email to our CDU students every Friday morning. And this morning was about milestones. Be scared.
Yeah, I saw it.
But can I say, it's there to scare you. But can I say a crucial bit of the confirmation of candor is under the heading rationale. Why are you doing this? why are you doing this research? Why are you doing this research at this time? So what you've just written there is a section, not only of your thesis, but of a milestone document, because I'm terribly interested in you and what drew you to this topic at this time. And that is what sustains your research.
Yeah, and I'd done a little bit of it for my confirmation document, but there isn't a lot of space to go into it in that. And this, I was just kind of taking it a little bit beyond where I had gone before. So
Brilliant.
it's
Brilliant.
been wonderful.
Brilliant. And that will change that thesis. Whack that in the introduction. If it keeps going, it may end up a prologue, Ruth. You keep going, mate.
Thanks.
Legendary. What?
Can I just say?
Yes, you can.
In the sciences, we tell the students that the time that they know the difference between what they think they're doing and when they know what they're doing is in the writing it down part. And you just gave a great example of why that is, Ruth.
Brilliant. Right.
Well, I am a former biochemist turned qualitative researcher, so
So you're on the dark side of the force, but we love it.
trying to reconcile those two things right now.
Yeah, look, we do that on a daily basis in our marriage, Ruth. So good luck with that, girlfriend. Good luck. But no, Ruth, you're absolutely magnificent. And getting the words down, it'll help examiners too. That's a great morning. That's a powerful morning. And speaking of an early morning, we should go to beautiful Emma in the purple. So Emma, what were you working on, darling one? Oh, yeah.
Sort of following up on what I was doing 2 weeks ago, which I've since presented on personal values and the way that you choose the way that you do research and your methods. And today looking at the role of emotion in deciding whether something's right or wrong. And sort of got sidetracked into that to thinking, oh, there's another way of thinking about this. So sort of went down a bit of a rabbit hole.
Wow. And what have you discovered on that? So I'm always interested in decisions and choices, Emma. I mean, just as sort of in multiple philosophy modalities, what's your view on that choice or decision and the role of emotion in it? I'm interested. Tell me, talk to me, give me anything so I can think about it.
Well, that's actually the topic of what PhD is about.
I know.
So at the moment, what I'm thinking is that some of the methods I'm looking at, some of them say cut this out, be objective, do this, have theories, don't have theories, and others say, look, all you're doing when you try to cut this out is you're not acknowledging what is actually there. And so in our way, we're acknowledging what's there. So it's one of the difference. I don't want to use jargon, but I'm an evaluator, so it's kind of hard not to.
Yeah.
So outcome harvesting is a realist method that says don't go into the field with your mind made up and theories. That's like a detective going into a murder scene with their mind made up, quite dangerous.
Yes.
And realists say, I'm sorry, humans are not blank slates. You're going to have theories. Much better you articulate them, surface them, and test them. And so those were two of the things we explored at this public presentation last week about how can you decide which method to use. So I'm now trying to apply that to moral judgments, ethical judgments.
Unbelievable. Is anyone else having one of those mornings? I feel so much smarter than I did 40 minutes ago. Emma, that's amazing. I'm going to be thinking about that all afternoon. Unbelievable. Queen Mary, I mean, again, no pressure, mate. You're doing it to each other. Mary, what were you working on, gorgeous one? Wow.
I'd just like to say as an aside that Emma and I are sort of like the Perth section of this group. So we are starting to meet up regularly now, and keeping each other going and encouraged, which is really good.
I'm so excited I could weave big respect to all the West Australians out there. Can I just say, represent. Go, Mary, represent.
And at the moment, I've got a chapter submitted to my supervisors. And my ethics application, which I have discussed with Emma, of course, because she's an ethics expert. I've got feedback, which isn't too bad, and I've submitted that. So I'm in one of those waiting periods of waiting to hear back. I won't hear back from my supervisors for 2 weeks about my chapter. So I now have the wonderful opportunity of sitting down and just writing about the overall story of the massacre that I'm doing in my research from woe to go. And interestingly, I've done so much research on it. I know so much about it. When I started to write, I was really daunted because there was just so much to write about it. But in the last week, I've managed to get past that, and I've put in a whole lot of headings, like you suggest in one of your vlogs. It's like, yes, right, headings, yes, what point needs to be, and then I can just look at each heading and start writing on that. So that's what I'm working through, and probably will be for at least a month, maybe 6 weeks.
But Mary, it makes me so happy because when we first met, and I feel like I've always known you, but when we first met, you were very, you're saying, look, there was not a lot of material. You'd found all this material, but it's sort of been absent from all the history books. And the idea that you're saying to us today, there's so much to write. I got quite emotional because, I mean, and that's why it's a PhD, to be frank, but hashtag no pressure. But Mary, that's amazing, isn't it?
It's actually a really interesting feeling I write stuff down and I think, no one's written this. This is the first time it's been written. And, of course, that's not for a lot of the aspects of it. Yes, I'm rehashing what other people have written, but I'm putting some of it together in a different way, different points of view, saying, have you noticed this about that aspect of the settlement of the Swan River, stuff like that. So, because it's all leading down towards this massacre occurring and the background to it. So,
I can't wait.
It's very interesting to do.
Can't wait to read it. Unbelievable, Mary. You are an inspiration. And speaking of inspiration, good evening from Jamaica, Queen Susan. What were you writing on, Susan? If you can hear me, darling. Can you hear me? Hello, Susan, darling.
Yeah, yes, I can hear you.
What were you writing on, beautiful one?
Well, thanks for the compliment. I was writing for an application for, what is it exactly? Sorry, I did a diploma in research ethics some time ago, and there was an invitation that came in my email a few days ago that there's an opportunity to be part of some upskilling in writing. And so it'd be 4 English for Caribbean and Latin America. So 4 people with Spanish and 4 for English. And I looked at it and thought, maybe I should have a go. Sorry, like for the program. So I had already started. What I just did in the half an hour, the most frightening part was a sentence I wrote that since I want to be a public intellectual, come on. So I'm like, wait, do I want to be a public intellectual? So, sorry, they have a whole bunch of questions you must write in the application. So the first one is why you want to be in the program. So since they said leadership skills, writing, and critical thinking, which I never understand where anybody, if you don't have critical thinking by now, when are you going to get it? But anyway, whatever. But next. So sorry, I believe that my father is the one who, any thinking that I do good is because when I was a little child, my father interacted with me a lot. Yeah. And then you get the knowledge later on. That's my opinion. Well, whatever. Right. Yeah, so I wrote that. And I'm just trying to get, sorry, the topic is climate change and health. So in the last 2 days, I've learned so much about climate change and health that I did not know about before, because I'm actually considering, do I want to do this? I am shocked. I don't know if you guys know, I don't want to spend time on that, but I can't believe, sorry, I have a master's in public health and some other degrees as well. I actually can't believe that I knew a long time that what affects, the brain for good affects your heart, but it's the same thing for basically health and the planet. So what is good for your body is good for the planet, and vice versa. Basically, that's the essence of what I learned. And since I'm kind of passionate about public health, and one of my dreams is to do research that is digital health interventions for either health promotion and or behavior change. Yeah. I was actually wondering if I should shift kind of where my focus is and like combine climate change and health, but I don't know that much about climate change. So in the last 2 days, I just read some scholarly articles, watched the most popular TED talks, looked at what the UK had to say, looked at the CDC. So I don't know a little bit, so I didn't know that much. But it's like really overwhelming, the little bit that is written, even the amount on YouTube, it's not overwhelming views. So this very important area. So anyway, so I'm writing. So I need to decide if I actually really want to try to be a public intellectual. But people like Tara, and I'm being serious now, really inspire me. So I'm thinking that I should continue with my application because like she points out, that's what PhD, that what is so important is upskilling all the time. So what I'm writing about, like they have 3 sets of questions that you must put together in 2 pages to justify your application by November 13th, as well as your CV. So I'm writing it.
Susan,
Am I making-
you are unbelievable. So you are upskilling. Your entire life has been upskilling. Can I say Susan holds it's 3 or 4 master's degrees, Susan?
3.
This woman, talk about
I
upskilling.
don't have a PhD yet.
Yes, well, I'll sort that out very quickly, to be honest with you. But Susan, the work that you do is amazing. And I think it's very important from your part of the world in particular, your voice, your views, your
Yes.
magnificent part of the planet has been way, way too silent in this debate. So I'm
Right.
thrilled that you are entering the foray.
Right. Can you believe that? Like, I'm back to looking at the literature and what the experts are saying. So the cost of all the rich countries, the America, the China, I don't remember the order, but those 2 are the biggest. It actually affects all the developing countries much, much, much worse than the rich countries. Like, it's such a tragic strategy. And I wasn't so concerned. I mean, I knew it was a big area, but because I'm passionate about health and now I see the connection to health, I'm now more excited about it. I'm like, wow. Sorry, I didn't think it was a good thing, because I'm seeing all the effects of climate change in Jamaica, where I live.
Absolutely.
But now I see the impact on health. I'm like I just have a passion for health. So I'm like, wait, this is actually, it's important.
Yes, and as you can see, beautiful Ruth has talked about the well-being economy.
Mhm.
Well said, Ruth. Very powerful for our Susan. Just tremendous. Susan, you are the best in the universe. And of course, we'll go. We love you, Susan. Love you, Susan. Want to be Susan, and it's. Do
Susan, not about the Gaia principle.
you want to do the Gaia principle?
So I know there are a few people in the room playing in climate change. Have you heard of the Gaia principle?
Tell them, baby.
So it's kind
Not
of
yet.
it's kind of a reasonably old model now. I would say 80s. And there was a guy who was an atmospheric physicist named James Lovelock, and he created this principle called the Gaia principle, which basically said that if you treat the planet like an organism, it will self-regulate. So it's actually, I think, worth considering, Susan, when you're trying to think about public health and climate change. It could provide a model that can allow you to tether them together. So the notion of the Gaia principle, like I said, I think of it as a model. The idea that the whole of the organism and the components within it affect each other would be really an inherent part of that model, I think, that might help you.
And how appropriate from Jamaica too. Wow. Oh, Susan, that could be useful, darling. Might have just given you something that's useful there. Can you keep
So I'm going to look up the Gaia model, and somebody has put in like a YouTube. I'm going to look at that as well. So thanks for that.
Susan, keep in touch with us through the weekend. Let us know how you go. You're a legend. And can I say, speaking of climate change, I'm of course quite obsessed about the Pacific Islands and obviously Samoa, hashtag Samoa, no pressure. Let's go to Queen Meghan and find out where we are, Meghan. I mean, this has been what an inspirational time. This has been, I've learned so much. Meghan, talk to me, mate. I'm quite emotional. Bloody hell.
I absolutely love these hours. I learn so much, and I also get confirmation that I know so much, because as I'm listening to others talk, I go, oh yeah, that's that theorist and that theorist, and Kohlberg's moral development, and I just love it. But today I've been writing about a theorist that I didn't know about, and that is Gramsci on his prison notebooks for organic intellectuals, and how very interesting that has just been mentioned as well. So I'm a bit in love with Gramsci, I'm afraid, and it's a great big prison rabbit hole for me to go down. So I have a new supervisor, everybody, and I've changed from a PhD by publication to just a traditional thesis. So today I've been updating my research proposal for my new supervisor and putting in the Gramsci stuff. And because of that, I realized I can actually throw in some of my own previous publications and cite them, but also my father's. And I was absolutely thrilled to work out that mine come first before his, just because of our, the name. So if he was alive, I'd be ringing him up and saying, hey, Dad, you're so yesterday.
Megan, that is amazing. And can I say the organic intellectual and Antonio Gramsci, I'm completely obsessed by anyway. He was a hunchback. He was, imprisoned by the Benito Mussolini regime and for political views. His newspaper was called The New Order, that became The Band. And so remarkable man, suffered for his politics and transformed intellectual culture. So that's not a bad legacy, eh?
Oh, yeah. And really, this whole thing is so interesting for me because I've always leaned Marxist feminism anyway, but my father was an army officer and I grew up in a really, really conservative household. My mother was a missionary, right? So I've always been the black sheep of the family, and now I just feel like saying to them all, hey, I got a new friend on my side.
Yeah, and she's mad. Megan, you're very precious, and it'll be very interesting to see how that conversation goes. And Kirsty, I wonder if Kirsty and Megan through the next few weeks might have an interesting correspondence on that. Let's see how that one develops. I didn't get round everybody. I am so sorry, but we will do what we always do. It's this moment. We wait for this moment all week. It is Dina time. Dina, come on.
Well, I don't know whether I have anything interesting to report. I'm just doing, so I had the feedback from my supervisor and another supervisor, and she mentioned whether I could put my writing to a more formal high English style. So because I'm doing grounded theory, I like to put a lot of like self-reflection and all of my experience in the research through the writing. And well, yeah, I don't use a lot of high English word like elucidate, denote. It's not I've never like had a formal education in English language, so I like to play with just normal words. So I am working on that. I'm not sure whether you have any advice for me to
Dina,
how to.
Yeah, Dina, I do, and I can see Gay's about to explode too. Dina, I'm old, mate. I'm 54, and I've never used the word elucidate. I think I'd probably need about half a litre of vodka before I'd use the word elucidate. The notion that that's even a word that's in your brain is amazing to me. Clean, crisp, strong language. I remove adjectives. I tend to write with short sentences and I remove adjectives. Clean, crisp, noun, verb, connection. And you know what? Thanks, we're done, girlfriend. We're done. The notion of highfalutin or being posh and stuff. Clear language. So straight to our editor. Go, Gay.
I agree totally with you, Tara. Dina, as long as the writing is clear and understandable, that is what is required. This Academy's language really, really bothers me because it is obfuscating and unclear and, yeah, obfuscating, it's a lovely word.
I love that word.
And that is so much of what's in Academies, you cannot understand it. I edited an entire book that was written in Academies and I could not understand it. So I'm really riled up about this. The thing that your writing needs to be is clear so that the reader knows exactly what you are saying. And I know that you have to do what your supervisor is saying, but it's
Yeah. So Dina Dunn, aim for clarity. And look, I understand colleagues that come to our program and you are a gift to us that are working in a second, third or fourth language. You are a gift to us. So sadly, I think a lot of our systems are about making you feel less than the spectacular human that you are. And what you are doing is absolutely amazing that none of us could actually do. If I was trying to write a thesis in Bahasa, my goodness me, it would be a nightmare. It ain't about elucidate, girlfriend, okay? It's a nightmare.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you can.
So Dina, in the literature that you're reading in your research field, I think if you're trying to understand what the general vocabulary and language that people tend to use to describe things. If you read a lot in that space and get phrases and words that people like to use to describe things in the field, I think that's that's the most expeditious way for you to progress, to kind of bridge a perception of a gap between what you're doing and what your supervisors are looking for. And then that way your ability to read the literature will improve. You'll get more out of reading. And also what you try to produce and what you publish will be more readily accepted by the research field that you're working in. So I think that's the pragmatic angle to put on this.
Yes, and if I can just add one other variable too, grounded theory has a particular problem like this, Dina, because because it is a theory coming from the ground, literally, there's the notion that your respondents, your subjects of research, that they have a discourse in a particular way, and examiners and assessors sometimes get frightened if the student has the same modality, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So as long as, I think, and that may be the greater issue, they're saying, oh, look, you've got to elucidate. No, it's about, here are your respondents in their language in an authentic fashion, and you've got to demonstrate your authentic academic voice that may be in a different modality or a different language. So just make sure there is a difference there, and that's what we're after. But Dina, you're doing fantastically, and as I said, I just think this is an international issue whereby we've got colleagues working the second, third or fourth language, and we have a notion in our head about how those colleagues should be writing. And I think, to be frank with you, Dina, and I always am, I think we're coming from a deficit model of teaching and learning. You are authentic, full, magnificent and brilliant, just as you are. And to be frank, it's colonizing. It's colonizing if I say, oh, by the way, you need to write more like this person rather than your own spectacular human and the journey that you've been on. You are enough, and you're doing a wonderful job, Dina.
Thank you. Thank you.
Also want to add,
we appreciate it.
You're a blessing, sweetness.
I also want to add that that kind of feedback, I actually got that feedback when I was a lecturer. After I'd done my PhD, I published about 20 papers at that point. And I had one of my first PhD students and I were working on an article together. And it took ages for it to be reviewed. It got reviewed. Then we revised our manuscript, we resubmitted it. And then I had a reply from the editor saying, your language needs to be lifted. And it was basically a machine saying you can't write, which I took great offense to at the time. This thing took forever to publish. And what happened was we eventually went to a more prestigious journal and it was published within 6 weeks. So you know,
sorry,
don't take it to heart, is I guess my point.
Darling, you are where you need to be and you are a gift to us. Okay.
Dina, I'm happy to help you with that language if you need it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, this has been lovely. What a couple of hours we've had, dear friends. I'm sorry I didn't quite get round. I always love talking to Gay, love talking to Ian. We've got gorgeous Julie in the house. Colleagues, thank you for your time. Paul, have a lovely evening. You are a spectacular human. And from all around the world, I thank you for your time. Sleep well, Susan. Sleep well, Paul. Much love, everybody. Dina, baby, you got this. You're the best, sweetness. See you soon. Bye-bye, everybody.